everyone. Welcome to Design Night Colorific. Tonight, we're going to explore color and how it brightens the world of design. So we were asked to wear our favorite colors tonight. You guys wear your favorite colors? See some pink, some purple, some yellow. So I chose white because it encapsulates all the colors. But this one takes it to the next level with all the colors. It's all the colors. Speaking of colors, they're all over the place. So Pantone does a color of the year. Who here knows what the Pantone color of the year is this year? Anyone? Orange? No, it's not orange. It is Marsala. You know, like the wine or the chicken. There it is. Who knew? Marsala. Kimberly is wearing a nice Marsala color here for those of you. Yes, she's very with it. Very, very with it. And right up to date with 2015. So color affects us in so many ways. It's really impossible to overemphasize the role that it plays in our lives and the world we live in. It affects our emotions, our decisions, our actions that we take on a daily basis. We know that green means go, red means stop. And earlier this year, late last year, the internet went crazy trying to figure out whether this dress was white and gold or blue and black. Who sees white and gold? Who sees blue and black? What? Who sees something different? So you guys can all have some heated discussions later over whether this is white and gold or blue and black. You've already started your discussions. But in a moment, we're going to ask you to hold off on those discussions. So color affects everything, especially in the world of design. And that brings us to our speaker for tonight. He's an artist and a mechanical engineer. He works on LED control techniques that allow light to have dynamic spatial presence. He uses custom technology to make subtly changing color relationships. And he creates these light sculptures that cause us, their viewers, to question what they see. They're light objects and they're explorations of the limits of human perception. Last year, he was an artist in residence at the Autodesk workshop at Pier 9. And we're really excited that he's here with us to talk about his beautiful work. Please welcome Craig Dorety.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm pretty excited to be here tonight. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what inspired me to start working with light and color, and the technology that I use and how I use it. And then I'm going to give some of my concepts about my perspective on color. So for me, it kind of all started in 1999. It was my first year out at that event in the desert that we call Burning Man. And I stumbled out into the desert on my first night, and I came across this thing. It's called L2K, or Lights 2000. And it was built by a group called the Mad Scientist Collective. And it's basically a 600-foot diameter circle of these LED pods. And they're all wired together underneath the desert. And they create these kind of amazing moving animations that are just huge. I mean, it spreads out off into the distance. So this really kind of blew my mind. It really opened up my mind about using light not only to change things as color, but to use light in space, in big spaces, and how that movement that you can create through animation kind of can have an impact on emotion. So this sculpture was one of the few things in my memory that inspired me to study engineering as a means to create art. Prior to this, I had studied design and color theory and drawing, but I didn't have the facility to build things, and I didn't really have a deep understanding about how things are made and how things work. So After seeing that, a couple years go by, I get my mechanical engineering degree, and then I end up meeting these guys, the mad scientists, and I got involved with the next iteration of the project. So you can see here it's a little different. It's no longer individual pods, it's now these kind of speed bump shaped things. And instead of just being a single color, now it's a full color system. Again, it's 600 feet in diameter and just absolutely huge. So I apologize for the low quality of this video, but it's all I could find documenting the animation of this sculpture. So here you can just barely see the ring outlining the Burning Man there, and in a moment you'll see a slightly better video of that. So this project was amazing for me because I got heavily involved, and I got to act as kind of a technical project lead on the assembly of this thing. So it gave me a lot of exposure to working with light technology, electronics assembly, managing a team to put a big project together, troubleshooting, reworking, all the stuff that is involved with putting together a large electronic project. So that experience paved the way for me to go to work in the studio of Jim Campbell. Does anyone know Jim Campbell's work? No, nobody? Yeah, okay. If you don't know Jim's work, you should check it out. He is a master of light technology, and his work is really, really special. In Jim's studio, I acted as a technical project manager and mechanical designer for some of his larger projects. So this is kind of all the background that leads me to my current work, where I create these frameworks for colored light to have animated interactions over time. So I set up a system where the color contrast can really interact with each other in order to cause kind of optical illusions that challenge your eye and your mind. This is a photograph from my studio, and here you can see that framework. So these are some of the layers that are inside this piece. And you can see along the inside here are the LEDs that I use. So there literally are frameworks for light. So important to my work is the LED, the light emitting diode. And here in this you can see is kind of the anatomy of the LED. And the most important thing that I want to discuss here is the electrical components, which are the anode and the cathode, and the semiconductor, which is the little bit that actually emits the light. If you flow electricity, electrons, through these electrical components, and they hit this semiconductor, the physical makeup of that semiconductor is set up so that it then emits photons of a certain frequency. This all came out of Einstein's discovery of the photoelectric effect, where he discovered that if you shine light on a piece of metal, electrons jump out of it. The entire semiconductor industry is based on this principle. So this is the LED that's most common in my work. It's a three-color LED, red, green, and blue emitters. But what's special about this one is the little black thing there is a built-in microchip that allows individual control of each of the colors. And with that individual control and brightness, I can then mix those colors to create any one of 16 million colors. But it turns out that controlling these LEDs and controlling that mixture of color is not trivial. It's not a simple thing to turn up the brightness or down the brightness of an LED because of the way they operate. They always operate, under the correct conditions, they always operate at the same brightness. So in order to get a varying brightness out of them, you have to do what's called pulse width modulation, where you turn it on and off really fast, and the ratio of on versus off fools the eye into thinking that it's either dimmer or brighter. So color is very important to my work. It's how I achieve the kind of optical illusion nature of the pieces. And so I think a lot about color. And one of my biggest questions is, well, what is color? And it turns out that this is a question that a lot of very important philosophers and scientists have asked throughout history. It turns out that color is light. All the color that we see in our world, it helps us determine whether we stop or go at a stoplight, or whether something's safe or not safe, or something's edible or not edible. All of this color is reflected light from the sun in the visible spectrum. And what's interesting about reflection is, and this is true for refraction and diffraction as well, light doesn't bounce off of things. Light is incident on surfaces, it is absorbed by those surfaces, and then is re-emitted either as the same color or different color. So this diagram is kind of an antiquated model of the atom, but here you can see a photon incident on an electron causes an energy state change. But depending on the chemistry of the material that the light is bouncing off of, the electron will drop back down into its previous energy state and emit a different photon. So the light you're seeing that's bouncing off a mirror is actually not the same photons that landed on the mirror. This is how light carries information. Who's got a favorite color? Okay, do you see your favorite color on this chart?
Yes.
Great. Okay, good. Now I can know that I've made at least a few of you feel better. So my favorite color is on this chart too. Can anyone guess what it is?
Black.
It's black. The opposite of Jason. And the reason that my favorite color is black is because it is the highest contrast to any of the other colors and lets them really become as brilliant as they can be. So the idea that, that people can have a favorite color is an example of the emotional impact that color can have on our lives. And the fact that your favorite color is blue might be due to a few reasons. One of those reasons is the chemical makeup of your brain or your genetics. And another reason could be memories that you have associated with that color. It may just make you feel good because of certain occurrences that you've had in your life. So these are just examples of the psychological impact that color can have on our minds. This is really important. This is a great infographic. So color is really important in a few industries, like Jason mentioned in the design industry, but in particular, companies spend a lot of effort choosing colors for their corporate identity. In the Western world, we associate colors with different moods, and all these different companies have thought a lot about that when they choose the colors for their logos. So aside from corporate identity, color is really important when choosing colors for your product, so product design. And for instance, the high visibility safety vest would be useless if it were like brown. Right? No one would see you, you'd get run over by a tractor. So color is not only important in the kind of emotional impact it has, but it's actually important functionally. So now I want to talk a little bit about the way color gets to our minds and what it goes through as it's getting there. So this is a diagram of the human eye. And you can see here that this part of the eye is actually a lens. And a lens is a type of prism. And it was Isaac Newton that did a countless number of experiments by passing sunlight through a prism and noticing what happened to the light after it passed through the glass. And he noticed the rainbow, and he noticed if you twisted prisms, it did different things to the rainbow. And he wrote a pretty extensive book called Optics, and published in 1704. Pretty difficult to read, but I recommend it if you're interested in kind of the early ideas about physics of light. So getting back to the lens that's in the eye, what Newton discovered is that light travels at different speeds through a material like glass. And this is what causes the light to spread out into the rainbow. So the lens in your eye is a type of prism which causes the light of different frequencies to arrive at your retina at different times. So the effect of that on what you see is that red seems to advance in any image and blue seems to recede. In other words, red seems to be more close and blue seems to be farther away. This is a really important aspect of color that I use quite a lot in my work to create the kind of optical illusions. So to me, the red square here looks like it's in front of this gray square, and this blue looks like it's behind the gray square. So aside from red looking closer and blue looking farther away, colors next to each other can have an impact on how they look or feel. So this chart shows a gradient from blue to magenta and another gradient from red to magenta. And the magenta on the top row there looks warm, or in other words, closer than the blue, and the magenta on the bottom looks cooler or farther away than the red. This type of color context and color contrast is also pretty important in my sculpture. So this is an example of one of my pieces. This blue layer here, to me, seems like it's behind this layer, but in actuality, physically, it's not. So this is another example of illusion in my work. Now, this is a static photograph, but my work is animated. It changes with time. It's temporal in nature. So now I want to talk a little bit about kind of tricks of the eye that have to do with time. All right, everyone look at the black dot on the left in the middle of the red circle. So our retinas are sensitive to light, but they get tired after being exposed to certain colors for a period of time. So this affects the way that they're able to send signals to the brain about the color that they're seeing. Okay, now everyone look at the black dot on the right. Who sees a scary face? Nobody? Okay. You should all see kind of a light blue circle. And the reason this is happening is your eyes become tired of looking at red. So when it looks to the right, it's no longer transmitting red to the brain. So white minus red turns out to be light blue, or cyan. So this is what's called the after image, and this is another important factor of my work, and it's a trick that I use to kind of fool the eye. So this slide is just a quick example of what changing color can do in contrast with another color. So on the left is a static red square, and on the right is a square of the same size that's slowly changing color. If you stare at the seam between the two, the red square on the left, for me anyway, appears to wiggle around a little bit. And it also seems to change its kind of color just a little bit. So this is just another example of how changing colors over time can cause your mind to see what's not really there. Who's seen this one before? Anyone? Okay, everyone stare at the little black cross in the middle of the screen. Okay, who sees a green dot? Yeah, okay. Okay, who sees the purple dots disappearing? Not yet? Okay, keep staring. Okay, it turns out there is no green dot. It's just the purple dot disappearing, and like the red that we were seeing earlier, it's leaving the after image of the opposing hue of green on your eye. Right? It's nice, right? Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff that I love to play with in my work. So I've talked about the kind of physics of light. I've talked about the technology that I use and the LED and the controller. I've talked about color context, and I've talked about animated color context, and I've talked about after image. So all of these things are tricks that I use to cause these illusions. So the technical way that I make the animation is as follows. I choose a photograph of a natural subject. In this case, it's a tropical fish tank. And I look in the image, I look for an area that has a lot of nice color activity and a lot of nice harmonious color context. I grab that section, rotate it 90 degrees, stretch it way out to like 100,000 pixels, And then I play back each line of that as a frame in an animation. So now I'm treating a static image like a film strip. So it's abstracting a still image into the domain of time. And that creates these subtle, moving animation effects. So that's my current work. And coming up in the future, I've got a bunch of projects in the pipeline. And one of them involves colored light or changing colored light on colored surfaces. So this is a simulation that I threw together where there is a red square, a green square, and a blue square. And all I'm doing is animating the light that is shining on these squares. So while this is a simulation, this totally works in real life. If you shine red light on a green square, it turns black. So I'm excited to be working with stuff like that. Another thing I'm working with is the nature of lights as rays, as beams. So if you have a light source and then you put something in front of the light source and you're blocking off parts of it, then I'm just using the photons that are passing in that direction. And it causes kind of illusions of motion where there is none. This one's the best one here. All right. So color is light, and light illuminates our world. We couldn't live without it. I mean, blind people do, but not very easily. It's how we interact with our environment. It has a huge psychological impact on how we live our lives. It's very important to the design industry, the entertainment industry, and just about everything. So anyway, I hope that I've helped you see color in a new light. Thank you.